interrupting you. I was out with the Urban Sketchers in Boston yesterday. Let's see if I can zoom out without waking up the cat. Don't want to do that, do I? And I drew, this is the doorway to the first house I lived in Boston. I slept on the floor of a old roommate of mine from Minnesota, college days. He came to Boston to go to school, and I joined him just for a month. And I lived with him for a month, and then I found my own place. And I was intending to stay here only for a year, as was he, and then he was going to go to Minnesota and continue his grad school work, and I was going to go to New York City and make fame and fortune as a famous artist. And that's in an alternative universe that happened. Turns out he went to New York and is successful, and I'm stuck here. I'm not stuck. I'm enjoying my life here, aren't I, Kitty? So here was the first drawing I did, and here is a close-up of the Capitol. I guess I never realized how fancy the building I lived in was, that it had a Corinthian capital. Anyway, I continued. I then met up with the actual people from the sketch club group, and I drew, as usual, many drawings, many quick drawings in the 2 hours that we meet. Most people work diligently on one drawing that they, I don't want to say carefully render, but they render with more exactitude and with more detail and with more thought than I do. I tend to just dive right in, and at some point I either screw up the drawing or I finish it and or get bored with it and try something else. One of the things, though, let me see if I can find the first one I did. This is the first one I did. We were at the Boston Fens, and 30 years ago, when I first moved to Boston, these were quite popular with a certain group of people, among which I was a member, I guess, to the extent of that I was a gay man, but there were little paths that went through the tall grasses of the park where certain young men would meet other certain young men to discuss things. They were not botanists, I'll put it that way. They weren't studying the flora. They were more interested in fauna. I'll just leave it at that. I never did that, I will also add that. But while I was sitting here, I didn't think that that happened anymore, because you don't need it. You've got Grindr and all that kind of stuff to do this. But as I was sitting here drawing this scene, someone came out of this little path, and I have a feeling that that's what he was doing. Now, to this little thing, what you see here is a tree, and a dead tree, and other live things, and this is supposed to be part of the water feature of this park. And this area here is not only where light is hitting, but it's also where there's greens, you know, not plankton, but whatever that is on the top surface of the water. So drawing water, as you probably understand, is just a nightmare, because you draw its transparency, you draw its reflectiveness, you draw its murkiness, you draw its muddiness. And when you see anything, unless it's a still life of a cat sitting on an empty table, you end up really having to, if you tried to draw just that tree, well, you get lost almost immediately, because this branch here in the foreground, are you drawing that branch in the or you're drawing a tree trunk on the other side of the bank? It's just, it's very difficult to sort of understand what you're doing without really simplifying what you see. And here, and I was drawing with white and black pencil on this gray toned paper with some success or not, depending on my opinion at any given moment. This seems, it seems when I do this, the white isn't white enough and the dark isn't dark enough, and it ends up looking anemic to me. So I drew the same scene with the white on black, which I was able to control better, though it doesn't look any better, but I thought it was better. Here the few leaves of this, some tree, I don't know which one, maybe this one, was in the foreground somewhat and hitting bits of light rays that were coming down and allowing it to be hit. You know, there's the foreground, there's the middle ground, there's the background, there's the further background, and it's just a nightmare. Let me just get these in order here. You study that one, and I'll try to figure out what I was doing. I then ended up going to a different location and drawing this scene. In the distance here is the water feature of the gardens. These were designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, the designer of Central Park. And this is part of the, quote, Emerald Necklace, which starts at the Boston Common or something like that, and then continues along the Esplanade, Charles River, and then beats up with this one. And there's this long, you're essentially following this river from the Charles River, where it empties out to further back, and you've got a zoo, and you've got all sorts of other things in this many mile long necklace, Emerald Necklace it's called. So here, you know, there was a batch of trees in the center going out, and the water feature behind, and then there was the drain pipe and light hitting this, and sky is over here. And again, it turns to nothing, really. I mean, if I don't know, it wasn't working. We just looked at that one. Okay. I walked a little bit further to try to find, here was another scene. There's the water feature there. Here's the tree trunk, dead tree roots, and they were sort of bare. And then the bank is here in the foreground, and then some live trees here and some trees across the bank, huge oak trees back there. So here, Kitty, I know this is exciting for you, isn't it? Oh, Kitty is so happy. It was the water and the waves in the water, and the fact that the water was the lightest. There's the sky there, but the water was second lightest and sort of sparkling, shimmering in there. And I'm trying to capture that and also capture the just density of what the woods is like. And oh, what was that, Kitty? Was that necessary? No, you're going to get down. No, down. Okay, let go. Sorry. This is walking slightly or turning my head slightly. I walked around and then eventually came back, and it's sort of this, but I rotated my chair. I brought a chair with me, sort of a three-legged stool contraption, and I kept on sinking into the ground. So I had to move further back where the ground was a little more solid. But this was another one where, you know, there were two trees here, and it was the water. This is all water essentially, and the reflection of the light coming through the water. But I was also trying to capture the dappled bits of light that were hitting the trees and the ground. Most of this was sort of dark, and trying to capture the light. When you draw on gray paper like this, something has to be, some tonality that you're drawing is this gray. And anything lighter than that, let's say this tree trunk right there, that base, is the value excuse me, the value that I assign to this gray paper. I'll use the black pencil to draw anything that's darker than that color, and I'll use the white pencil and shading thereof to draw anything lighter than that. But there's a point where I have to decide what is generally going to be this gray. And that's an active decision that you make before you even put the pencil in your hand. And some people could ignore it, maybe, but at some point it's a decision that it's a factor that happens. I think at some point the artist has to think about that. Maybe not, I don't know. Oh, the cat's coming back for more. Though I normally don't try to, quote, make art. Well, I'll just draw one more thing, show one more thing here. This is a tree who's, you know, had these sort of elephantiasis growths on it as it came up. You know, a tree, rather than getting narrower as it goes up, this one was getting fatter and fatter. And it had these big goiters, carbuncles, these big rounded growths on, you know, the tree trunk especially, and on some of the branches. It looked like, you know, the tree was a multi-headed snake swallowing a bunch of ostrich eggs and then got constipated. But here again, the drawing was mainly about this tree, and the subject matter was the tree. The background, there's other trees, there's the sky, there's the forest, there's the water, there's a bridge over here. All of this other stuff is part of it, but it was the tree that I was focused on, and it didn't work out, but nonetheless, there it is. Finally, though I don't normally go to these, one of the reasons that I like Sketch Club meetings, Urban Sketchers meetups, is I'm placed in a position or in a location that shows something that I don't normally draw, and I'm outside of my comfort zone, whatever zone that's in, and I sort of can freely draw the subject without thinking about art, without thinking about meaning, without thinking about why I'm doing this. And my artistic side of my brain, which works only so much anyway, can be turned off. All I'm doing is drawing. But as I was sitting here drawing, and this is the first one I tried to do to represent that kitty, I wanted to show sort of the difference between the wild, quote, wildness of the jungle as represented by the carefully laid out plans of a landscape architect and the city. So here you have, you know, that's supposed to be a car. There's another car here. There's two people walking here. Here's a big sidewalk with a sharp edge. Here's, you know, lines that are never quite straight. They're all slightly angled. This is done with a ruler and a, what do you call them, transit and drafting tools and yardsticks and plans, and there's buildings over there that windows are equally spaced. Everything over here on this side of the drawing is, quote, man-made. Everything over here is wild. And of course, there's, you know, a visitor from another planet would look at what's happening over here and what's happening over here and say it's the same thing. This is just as wild as this, you know. But we humans, you and me, and even the kitty, would see that there's a difference, you know. This is not that. And I tried to show that difference. You know, I tried to draw this differently, but it wasn't working out here. I tried it here. This worked out better. Where, oops, I mean, clearly this is the bridge here, the two sides of the bridge, the road, the no parking sign, the lawn, and then the jungle, and the goddamn goose. The geese, there were a lot of geese that people ended up drawing, not because they wanted to, but the geese were very friendly. And just as unnatural. They were city geese. They came up to you because they thought you were going to feed them. They were not geese looking for worms or whatever geese in the wild do. But these geese were very tame, more or less. And this one sat by me, looking at me like my cat does. Feed me. Right, kitty? So anyway, here, you know, the right angles, here the chaos. And, you know, I draw this slightly more carefully. Here I get wild. Slightly more careful, slightly softer rendering, more logic to it, just attacking it. So sometimes my art brain kicks in and I specifically think about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Then I did this one. This was the last one I think I did, where it was somewhat the same thing. Here, way off in the distance here, you see cars and a building and a stop sign and some street lamps coming out, some people walking. And then here's one of my fellow urban sketchers sketching the wildness here. It was sort of in this thing that looks initially like it's the forest. It actually is a city. And so that was how I ended it. How I drew these things, I'm going to, now that my cat has returned, I'm going to show you sort of I'm going to pretend for a second that my cat is the wilderness, and I'm going to show you sort of how I drew it, rather than drawing. In fact, I'll do this. It's just going to be a sort of a close-up of part of his head, because, you know, I know that I'm drawing essentially the ear, but I don't know the parts of the ear. You know, oftentimes I can be trapped by and all of us can be trapped. We were talking about this when we were showing each other the drawings we were doing. A lot of people they weren't necessarily complaining, but they were saying how it was so difficult to draw the woods because there's so much there. And well, yes, of course there's so much in anything you draw. I mean, I see that when I'm drawing a building. You know, how many bricks does this thing have to have? You know, I just get overwhelmed. How many panes in that window? How many you know, how much do I have to look? You know, can I just draw? No, I can't. I have to count how many panes of glass are in this thing. And so what you end up doing is giving up or getting lost. You know, you're up to 853 bricks and you sneeze and then you, oh my God, it was at 853, at 854. 1, 2, you start over again. I thought, oh, and I can't count that high. You know, I go like those you know, prehistoric, they're not prehistoric, but those tribes in, I think, South America that count to 3 and then give up. You know, how many cows do you have? 1, 2, 3, many. How many bricks in that building? 1, 2, 3, many. And I end up just doing what I can draw, drawing what I can understand, can comprehend. So, like when I was drawing, you know, this picture, I think I started with the black in this case and then added the white, but sometimes I start with the white. I think in this one I started with the white. I picked the areas that were the brightest. I didn't care what it was. Could have been the water, could have been a tree, could have been this leaf on this plant. I just picked the white and I just mapped, and I got this far with the white, and then I went in with the black. Okay, what area? And I don't care if I'm drawing the back of the cat's neck. I'm not drawing that. I'm drawing the shape that's back here. You know, I'm looking for the areas of that are the darkest. And if it's the inside of the cat's ear or that stripe he has coming down here from his eye, it's like the makeup on a Egyptian sarcophagus head coming out of the eye. Okay, your eye's open, I can see that. And he's thinking, why are you talking so much? And here's the cat's ear, shadow, ear, shadow, shadow. Well, I can see that I'm, you know, this whisker that's coming from above his eye is supposed to be over here. I now notice. Don't you dare move, kitty. So this is how I drew last week. This is how I attacked this is how I call it attacking. This is how I attacked the gate in Chinatown. This is how I attacked the fens in the park. You know, the trees and the water. I didn't say, okay, now I'm going to draw the tree trunk. Now I'm drawing the ear. I'm not doing that. I'm drawing the darks. Now, does this look like a cat head? No. Oh, now you're moving. There's his little freckly things. His nose is off the page. He's now moved slightly, but I'll draw his shadow of his head here. So it was interesting, though. There were many very there are many very talented people in this group, and most of us most of them, I should say, I'm not counting myself amongst them, but most of them are using watercolor, which I have been loath to do because it scares me so much. But maybe I should go in and see what I can do with watercolor. If you want to see the drawings they do, look for USK Boston on Instagram, Urban Sketchers Boston. USK Boston, and you'll see the stuff they did. And there were maybe a dozen of us there. Some people were there for the first time. There was a woman visiting from Australia who's going to be in Boston for a couple of... Okay, Kitty, you're moving. Now you're licking yourself. Now you're moving. So anyway, that's how I did it. And oh, are you going to move? How are you moving? Oh, you're moving that way now. Okay, so this is how it worked on this paper. I'm going to draw just using the white now on black. And I'm sort of, oh, you're moving, Kitty. Well, I'll draw them this way now. And the cat's tail is, as you can see, he's providing just the right amount of annoyance. He's just saying, I'm not going to go over there. I'm going to stay right here and make him mental. So here I because of the one tone of the paper, it's easier for me to think about what I'm doing. I don't have to decide, okay, now I'm hitting that that middle point, and now I have to go back to the other thing, the other tool. It's just, okay, how many lines do I want to put on it to represent that shade? How hard do I press down? So this is, my decision making has been halved or even thirded. What's the opposite of trebled? When something is reduced by 2/3 and you're running on 1/3 power. I'm sure there's a word that I don't know. So because I'm drawing more of the cat, I'm more aware of, okay, I'm drawing the ear now. It wasn't like the other one. So this isn't as good an example as the other one on how I was drawing the plants and the trees and the water and the sky. I was talking to one of the watercolorists about this, and we were sharing our techniques. That's what's nice about this group, as well as you get pointers. People are more than happy to share what they do that they found successful. And we ended up saying that don't count the window panes. Don't count how many windows there are in the building you're drawing. Just draw them. But anyway, I was talking about how awful I was as a teacher. and tormenting my poor students in drawing class, we had our section on ink wash, or a section on value. It was a section on value. And a lot of my brethren in the art department who were teaching students would use charcoal or pencil or something like that. And we started with the line. I should go backwards. And we were using pen and ink or pencil, mainly pen and ink, I guess. And the next thing that we talked about was value. And my method of teaching value, I thought if I gave them a pencil to use or charcoal, they would just draw lines. And I didn't want them to do that. I wanted it difficult for them to draw lines. So I had them use ink wash. And so they're using a paintbrush, and it's one of these Japanese sumi ink brushes. So it's not even a brush that they were generally comfortable with. So I was evil, I'm sure, in that way as well. So, I guess you can see. So what I did was, they had this pattern, they had this tool that they didn't understand. They didn't understand. They understood how paintbrushes work, but they didn't have great experience with it. And then I gave them the thing to draw. And what I did was I brought into class maybe a saxophone, a clarinet, a trombone, some glass jars and beakers from the chemistry department, some mirrors, shiny bowling trophies, and maybe something else, I don't know, and put them in a big pile. None of them were standing up straight. I guess the beakers with water in them, they had to be upright, but everything else was in a big pile of debris. And I said, okay, good luck. And what that did was infuriate the students. That was not the point, but I knew that would happen. It forced them. They could not. I could see them with their paintbrush. I could see them trying to outline what they thought was the saxophone. And I would look over the shoulder of the student and I'd say, okay, what's that? Oh, that's the saxophone. And what comes up here, there's the key, there's the horn or whatever. They would point to some part of it. And I said, no, that's the reflection of the saxophone in the mirror. God damn it, they would say. Well, they wouldn't say that, but they would say, oh, heavens to Betsy, or whatever Wisconsinians say when they're frustrated. Oh gosh darn it all, they would say. And I said, no, it doesn't make any difference. I want you to see the darks. You're doing perfectly well. You're drawing, that's a dark thing and that's a dark thing. The fact that that's a reflection of that is immaterial. The fact that that's a shadow caused by that rather than this, that's immaterial. You're doing the right thing by drawing the shapes. That's what you're forced to do that. And when I'm in a jungle or I'm in the city, if I started drawing the person and the person's leg and the person's shoe and the sidewalk and the car, the parked car, and the spokes on the MGBGT, and I would kill myself. I can't, no one can draw that. you know, they could pick, okay, I'm going to draw the saxophone and struggle with which is the saxophone and which is the, anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm just, break came after an hour of this torment, and the people went muttering off to smoke a cigarette or take a leak or slit their wrists. And they came back, and I came back from whatever I did for 10 minutes. And I came back, and they all were looking at me really. There was probably one student who went right back to drawing, but the other ones were, they had sharpened their pencils and they were on the attack. They were, I could just see myself. Oh, Kitty, I know. See, this is you, Orca Doodle. That's kind of, yeah, I know. See, did I make you look fat? Anyway, that's how I did it. By just attacking, you have to attack, you have to simplify it in your little head. Yes, I'm going to draw this building. That's not simplifying it enough. Yes, I'm going to draw the entrance of this building. I'm going to draw the volume of this building. I'm going to draw the shadows. I'm going to draw the... my cat is pretending to be a windshield wiper here. Okay, I think I'm done. My cat's telling me. I know what that means. I know that means I'm tired of this. Good. This is what I look like, by the way. I know. You're saying the same thing my father says. Don't you own a comb? I know what I'm going to get you for your birthday. I'm going to buy you a mirror. Thanks, Dad. Say goodbye, Kitty.